started. So we are in, good grief, I tried to go on page twice now. We're in session 8, which is called Exposure to the Right Thing. So last week we talked about sexuality and exposing our kids and how we are our kids' first line of defense, and how when the kids hear it from other places besides us first, that becomes the standard to which they compare new information. So if they get what sex is about from a magazine or from a TV show or their friends at middle school, then any information coming from us then gets compared to the initial information first. So we are our kids' first line of defense in that. So I love that session. If y'all missed that session, it was a really good session. It's an important session. All of these, if you haven't missed any of the sessions, all of these sessions have been recorded and they are on our YouTube. So yes, they are on YouTube.
I'm looking for them on the Facebook page, and maybe they're just going to post them at the end. They're on YouTube.
They're on YouTube. They are on our church's YouTube page, and you can go watch any of the sessions from the past. So that's it for any of y'all joining in late or that you missed the session, because life happens. Okay, so we are going to be covering tonight chapters 14 and 15 from Raising Giant Killers, which were really good chapters. And we're going to be talking a lot about community, and we're talking a lot about, we touched a little bit on it last week about how we have to expose our children, and like we can't shelter them their whole lives, or then we throw them out in the world and they're like, what the heck? So exposure at the right times, in age-appropriate circumstances, and things of that nature. So, let me scroll back here, because I read my chapters. Anybody else read their chapters, 14 and 15? That's okay. I'll catch you up. So, chapter 14 was titled Exposure to World Need. And this was kind of an interesting chapter, especially in the thought process of all of the foster and adoptive families we have in our church. It's about not raising entitled kids. And if any of you guys that have foster and adoptive families know, entitlement is like a huge thing with foster kids and adoptive kids. And to me, it makes zero sense. It doesn't blow, okay, yeah, I'm looking at all the foster parents and it's blowing their mind too. Yeah, it makes zero sense to me, but it absolutely is. So they talk about exposure to the world around them. I think, so, excuse me for just a second. My nose is trying to run off my face, as my husband would say. I'm sorry, I have a terrible allergy. So, as my husband and I have experienced, we got our kids, and like the first, I don't know, within the first 6 months, it was like, dude, y'all gotta chill. Like, we can't afford to be buying all of the name brand stuff and all of the things, and it felt like it just wasn't ever enough. And so gratitude was something we had to teach our children fairly quickly, and we still struggle with it. We still struggle with the gratitude. Like the other night, so we have a Christmas tradition with our family where we have a Christmas Eve box, and in the box is all the kids get matching Christmas PJs, and we have like hot cocoa bombs and popcorn and fun Christmas treats. And then we watch a Christmas movie as a family before we go to bed. It's a fun tradition. Christmas is my jam. I love Christmas. And so, as we're talking about the Christmas Eve box, Isaiah goes, is it going to be PJs again? Because we just started this last year. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. He goes, yeah, it's probably just PJs. And I was like, I'm sorry, is that not good enough for you? And he said, what? And I said, are the PJs not good enough for you? You didn't like the PJs last year? And he was like, no, I love the PJs. Because my kids they were this close to getting their Christmas taken away this year. And I was dead serious. We had a really bad entitlement and attitude problem in our household. It was really, really bad. Fighting, nonstop, arguments, attitudes, being intentionally hateful with each other. And it got to the point where I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So for the month of Thanksgiving, or for the month of November, we outlawed the words I want in our household. Nobody was allowed to say I want. If you did, you had to tell me 10 things you were grateful for. And it shocked a couple of our kids anytime they did it, and we made them stop right there in the moment and like 10 things you're grateful for right now. So we did that through the month of November, but we also told them that they had the month of November to turn their attitudes around. I was like, I don't want to hear the sniping. I don't want to hear the fighting. I don't want to hear the griping. I don't want to hear the arguing over who's feeding the pigs in the morning. It's just get up and feed the pigs. So we told them they had the month of it to turn around, and I warned them, and I was like, this year, your dad and I were very blessed enough to be able to provide you probably the best Christmas we've been able to since we got you guys. And I'm really excited about that. I love to give you guys stuff. What I'm not going to do is give it to children who think they're entitled to it and who think they're owed it. So you can fix this, you can turn this around, or we will, as a family, be taking your entire Christmas budget, going to the Salvation Army tree, and picking up children who do not have life as good as you have, and we will be giving all of that Christmas money towards gifts for them. And I am dead. I was dead set. And I was like, and that hurt my heart because as a mom, I want to give my children everything. And I was at that point. I was like, I have to keep my word on this, or they're never going to respect me. And I did. They did. They turned it around really fast. They were like, we want our Christmas. So, and it's been better. It's been better. But the book stops on the point of we have to expose our children in appropriate levels to poverty and pain, and you wouldn't think we would have to expose our kids to that as they've come from. A lot of our kids have come from that, but we do. They talk about how that it was not done as a like, okay, once a year we're going down to the soup kitchen and doing it that way. That's not the type of exposure the book is talking about. It's not talking about, well, you're being really, like, probably what I did, where I was like, you're being little booty heads, so we're going to take your Christmas away. But it talks about the life exposure and being involved in that part of your life of, it's just ingrained in your life of caring for those that are less fortunate and caring for those that are in a place of pain and come from that. I'm sure he's going to talk about it on there, but he talks about people coming through their household, and like it wasn't unusual for their kids to wake up with somebody on the floor in their living room because someone needed a place to sleep for the night, and then they would eat breakfast together and they would go on their way. And he talks about praying for discernment in those spots as well. They talk about taking them on missions trips. If you are able to take your child on a missions trip, I think that's radical and life-changing for them. I would love to see our children and teenagers be able to do that. We used to do Mexico missions trips here at Fireside, and I would love to see us get back to that. And DJ's been on some of those. Didn't you? Did you go on a missions trip? No. Why am I thinking that?
Because he's wanting to be.
Oh, that's what it is. I was like, I could have sworn he went on one.
Yeah.
Have you been on a missions trip?
Yeah, I've been to Africa 3 times.
Been to Africa 3 times.
My first trip was when I was 16, and it changed my life.
Awesome.
And she lived there how long? Tell me how long.
A year.
She lived there a year.
That's amazing.
So I'll help lead it.
Okay. All right. We're gonna put Corbin in charge of that.
I'm serious.
So they talk about they took their kids down into Mexico and how they went and served at orphanages in Mexico. So they talk about how they did fostering and things like that, and not to avoid pain. One thing that spoke to me really is the inconvenience speaks part of the book. I think that too often we rush to make sure that our children are not inconvenienced. And one thing that my husband and I do a lot is we let our children be bored. Let your kids be bored, please. They need to learn how to be bored, because out of that boredom comes so many life skills. But so our family right now is in a season of inconvenience, because I have felt God tell me, you're going to lead adult ministry. That was wild. Never thought I would do that. Y'all are special. Because I only talk to little peoples. And so God called me out into this new area of ministry. And at the same time, God told me, you're going to finish college. And I was like, whoa, this is all at once. And it's put our family it's put our children really in a place of inconvenience right now. And we talk a lot about the sacrifices I'm making for our family right now. I'm still having to work. Like, that is a like, I have to work. We have to pay the bills. And in doing that, that means that I'm sacrificing my sleep. I get up at 4 a.m. most days to do college before I go to work, and then stay up some nights till midnight finishing college work to make sure that everything's getting turned in on time, to make sure my grades stay up so that I don't lose funding, so my family isn't, like, it's a whole thing. So we talk about the sacrifices that I'm making for our family right now in sleep and sanity and stress. But in that same thing is, yes, I'm inconvenienced, but that also means our household is kind of falling to the wayside because I'm really busy. So I don't have time to clean the house like I would like to clean the house. But there are 8 people in my household, and that means there are 7 other people that can clean, including our 2-year-old. And she does, because I threaten to throw her things away if she does not. And I have thrown them away. So we talk about how our family is a team unit, and how, because I am having to be in this place of inconvenience, this place of sacrifice for our family right now, that means y'all are gonna have to pick up the slack from mom right now. That means that when you come home, clean the living room, unload the dishwasher. There are 3 of you in this house, plus Thomas, three children that know how to do laundry. I know 3 of my children know how to do a full load of laundry because I taught them, because there's too many of them for me to do all that laundry. And so we talk about, as a team, for the team to succeed, for mama to get through this, the children are going to have to be a little bit inconvenienced, and that's okay. It's okay for them to be inconvenienced. It's okay for them to, and I'm not saying like slave labor, but it's okay for them to pick up some of the things that we drop sometimes when it's for the team. It's okay for them to do their own laundry. It is okay for them to take the trash out, to do the things. And don't let them get it over on you that they don't know how to do it. Teach them. And then if they're like my kids and they do it really bad the first or second time because they just want you to take over and do it for them. Anybody else have kids like that?
More practice.
You must need more practice. Don't let them skip out. There have been times I have made, there's one time, I'm gonna tell you a funny story. So Mariah and I have always tackled the bathrooms because Mariah was the oldest. She learned how to clean the bathrooms first. Well, when Isaiah got a little bit older, I was like, Mariah, you teach your brother how to clean the bathroom so that he can start doing this too. And then one day I told Isaiah, I was like, Isaiah, I need you to go clean the bathroom. This boy straight up looked at me and goes, isn't that Mariah's job? And I said, why do you think it's Mariah's job? And he said, because she's a girl. And I said, and now guess who gets to scrub the bathrooms for the next month? So I don't prescribe to that. So, and he did it really poorly. He did not want to do it. And it probably took him a good 45 minutes longer than it should have to take that bathroom, because I went in and I double checked it, said, nope, you missed here, you missed here. And did it take me longer to point it out? Could I have done it faster myself? Yes. But they ain't gonna learn that way. So I encourage you. So the part I highlighted here, it says, never underestimate your children's ability to recognize what you really value in your household. Madison knows how much it calms me down to not have to come into a crazy, messy house. So Madison has taken it on herself. She tidies up the living room every day before I get home, because she understands that that is a value to our household. Communicate the purpose of a meeting or other activities as they grow older. They will learn the importance of sacrifice and purpose through your example. If I value convenience, comfort, and a life that never has pain, I have trained my child to take the easy road in life. Sometimes the simple act of inconvenience speaks more to a child over time than 100 sermons on the importance of sacrifice. And then it has the verse, 2 Samuel, this is paraphrasing it, but you can find the verse in 2 Samuel 24:24. As David said, I will not offer something to God that did not cost me. We've got to start teaching our children that it is important when it comes to our ministry, when it comes to our faith, that there is sacrifices in that. For me, that is on Sunday mornings when I'm getting ready to teach your kids. I'm getting a lesson ready. I am praying for your children. I am seeing where God wants this lesson to go. That means on Sunday morning, I don't get to just lounge about. I don't get to have an easy breakfast. Most of the days, I don't eat breakfast on Sundays unless my husband stops me and makes me eat. Because I have kids to get ready for church. I have all the things. So it costs me for those children, but it's worth it. Your children are absolutely worth it to me. To be able to go in and teach your children every Sunday about what God has in store for them and to be able to pour into them, that costs me something. And I want to be able to offer God my best. And to offer God my best, that costs something. And that's important for our children to understand. If my son wants to play football and he wants to make that his life, it's going to cost him something. It's going to cost him time, energy, discipline. It's going to cost him. But in return, for that to cost him something, he also needs to learn to give that to God. We don't just waste our energy on things and then not give it to God. So, the other chapter that we cover this week is exposure to community. And thank God for Fireside, y'all. Thank God for this community of parents that come together and want to do life together, because I can't tell you how important it is to have other people in your lives that are ready to get in and do the hard parts of life. I just watched Corbin pat Vicky on the shoulder because they have each other. They do. They're doing this together. I have my best friend. She doesn't go to church here, but my best friend is that friend that I can call when my brain is literally like melting. And I'd be like, I need you to come over, I need you to have a cup of coffee with me, and I need sanity for an hour of my day. And I don't have to worry about the fact that there's laundry all over my house, and that the dishes aren't done, and that my counters are cluttered, and I don't have to clean my house. She just comes over, makes herself a cup of coffee, releases her 3-year-old into the chaos, and goes, what do you need to talk about? And and we do that for each other. Like, we text each other and be like, girl, we gotta have something, because we're both losing our minds. But it's important to have that community to be able to do life together. There was a part I highlighted in here. Where is it? So community provides. There's a practical care in the context of community. This is what the book's saying. I remember so many times that we were out of food and somehow my secretary, Barbara Calhoun, would know, although I never said a word. We would hear a knock on a door and she would have bags and bags of wonderful groceries for us. She did not make much money as the church secretary in those days. I think she spent most of it on us. Thankfully, we are now the ones able to provide for those in need. This is what family does. Fellowship makes family practical. This is where we stand with and for one another. And our children benefit from this life lesson probably more than any of us could possibly imagine. I remember when we first started adopting our kids, Thomas and I were really young. We had a lot of people look at us and go, you're nuts. And we were, and we are, and it's okay. But I was, oh gosh, how old was I? I don't know, I'm 29 now. So we adopted 4 years ago, so I was about 24, 25 when we first started the adoption process for our kids. And it was really hard. We lived in a single wide mobile home. We had no space for 4 additional kids, and we did not make a lot of money. We had our own baby, and we looked at each other and we said, how are we going to do this? Because we had no clue. We had no clue where the money was going to come from. We thought we were going to get help from the state, and we didn't, because we did not pursue traditional foster care. So we took the kids in, and in an effort to make sure they didn't get separated, we did not put them into foster care. There was a whole big loop that we had to jump through. But because of that, we didn't qualify for foster care subsidy. We didn't get that. We didn't get parental support from birth parents because there was none. We didn't get food stamps because we had to qualify for it on our own. And even though there were 7 of us at the time, we made literally $40 too much to qualify for food stamps. So the only thing we were able to get was daycare assistance and sooner care, which thank God for that. But this community, being able to do life with you guys, is what allowed us to adopt our children. We had support to lean on, and there were times, I remember very vividly, there was something that happened that allowed us to access Thomas's 401k, and that's how we paid for the adoption lawyer. But I remember there was one month, Thomas and I looked at each other, and the bills were paid, and the adoption lawyer was paid, and we had zero money for groceries. And we looked at each other and was like, what are we gonna do? And I said, we're gonna pray. And we did, we prayed right then and there. And we were planning to go to the church within the next week and say, we've gotta have help to get food. And we didn't even have to, because God works miracles. And we had, within a week, we had like, somebody had a grocery order and they said, hey, we actually got an extra gallon of milk. Do you guys need milk? And then somebody got a box of 60, like a 60-pound box of chicken nuggets. And they're like, we can't have these. My mic died, didn't it? They said, we can't have these because they're gluten or whatever it was. And all of a sudden we had chicken nuggets. And it just started coming in out of nowhere. How's that? There we go. It started coming in out of nowhere. All of these groceries from nowhere. And it was this community. It was people that knew. Did this one die too?
Are you serious?
The good thing I have a really loud voice, guys. Thomas, if you can hear me, come help me with the microphone. We'll see if he's coming. He's probably not. But let me say, I think the batteries are back in the sound booth. So it was this community that came together that we were able to do life for, and then it wasn't too long after we adopted that both my microphones died.
Do you want me to just grab fresh batteries out of the
Can you
closet?
help?
Can I have one of those, please?
Vicky's got one back there.
They were down there.
It wasn't too long after that we were able to involve our children in that same process. There was someone that had recently taken in some kids and they didn't have any toys. And I came to my kids and I said, I have these new friends that they don't have any toys and their children really need some toys. And immediately my children rushed to go get toys for, thank you. They rushed to go get toys for this family that these kids didn't have any toys. And it was because they saw a community that was there for them, that they were ready to jump into the next step of that, which was providing back into the community, just as the book says. And I love watching Thomas take our boys to the men's pancake breakfast, because it takes getting up early, it takes a lot of time to be able to do all that, but he takes them with him and they get to see their dad making pancakes for all of these men. And it's a good example for them to see that we do community together. One of the examples that my kids are seeing right now is this give and take with Trey and Tom, because they both have trucks that need worked on. And so they're leaning on each other, where Trey's come out, I don't know how many times has Trey come out to our house. At least 4 or 5 times Trey's come out and helped Thomas with his truck. And in return, Thomas goes and he's getting ready to, over this winter break, to help Trey with some insulation in his shop. So they're getting to see, like, we do life together and we help each other out, and I love that. So one of the things I highlighted was family gives, family shares, and family learns together. And that family extends to our church. We are a church and we are family. We give together, we share together, and we learn together. And I love that. So that's my start of it. Let's go ahead and watch the video, because I'm sure he can explain things much better than I can.
Welcome once again. We're going to move into session number 8. And the next 2 sessions, I'm going to talk to you about what Benny and I intentionally expose our children to. You want to be deliberate, because there are certain things that you can't provide for them just through your words, your instruction. You actually need to put them in a context in which they find out what God's put in them. They find out what God may be saying in a particular matter. So this is what we did. So that means then that if I'm going to expose my children to certain things, one of the things will have to include human need. I have to expose them to human need. I've got to expose them to pain. Now, age appropriate, you need wisdom for how to do this, how to go about this, but we lived right on the main highway in Weaverville, and we often had people that were passing through town. Sometimes they would stop by and need food or whatever, and if we had it to give, we would do that. A number of times my kids woke up in the morning seeing a stranger sleeping on our living room floor that would come in from the middle of the night, and we'd have them come in and have them eat breakfast with us. So my children were raised being exposed to strangers in need, people they never knew, people that they would never see again. And we always considered that, you know, we didn't invite the person into our home to expose our children, but they became exposed to how we did life, and that's what happened. You have to be careful in doing that, obviously, because you know, there's so many people that will do harm. And you always want to make sure that safety is a top value. But I would really pray into that over every case, and sometimes we just stay up a while and pray for that kind of safety and protection. And it worked out as a very favorable thing for us. David made this statement. He said, "I will not offer to God something that did not cost me." I'll not offer to God something that did not cost me. It's in 2 Samuel 24, verse 24. I will not offer to God something that did not cost me. One of the things that we teach our children through our lifestyle is what we're willing to pay a price for. What are the things that you are willing to sacrifice for? For example, they may see you sacrifice to buy them a birthday gift. They may see you pay a heavy price every Sunday morning working to get the kids all ready to go, and the difficulty of actually making it to the church on time. And that actually speaks to them. It talks to them about what you value. This is so critical for us because we live at a time where convenience is almost a god. Convenience and ease. I mean, we have, if a funeral home is going to do a mailing about, advertising their services, they have to put a warning on the envelope because we are so sensitive to certain subjects. They have to put a warning that there's sensitive material in there. What is it? It's a casket and a funeral plot. They have to actually warn before mailing that out. Why? Because our culture is so insulated, as much as we know how to be, from pain, from discomfort, those kinds of things. So what we do as parents is we make decisions, and in those decisions we illustrate what we're willing to pay a price for, what we are willing to be inconvenienced for. You know, kind of a side note, but we have our Good Friday service here, down at the Civic Auditorium. There's 100 or so churches that are involved in this thing, and it's just, I rotate my schedule literally around that Good Friday service, make sure that I'm in town. In fact, I make sure I get home early enough that if I'm late, I'm still on time. So, but one of the things that I remember early on, there's no child care. It's very inconvenient for families to be a part of that. But how cool is it to have children have a tradition? Traditions aren't evil unless they replace relationship. How valuable is it to have traditions built into our life, that there are just certain things that we do. Every Thanksgiving we do this. Every Christmas we do this. Easter is our celebration for this. It's those kinds of things. Good Friday, we meet together as a community of believers all through our city. And it's a hassle for parents, but I in recent years I've been encouraging parents, listen, be inconvenienced, pay the price, stand in the back with your restless child, do whatever you need to do, but expose them to the value of community for traditions that prophesy and testify of what God values. And you never underestimate the impact that you will have on your children, your grandchildren, by having them see what you pay a price for. It's a huge part of our life. There's this passage I want to read to you out of Hebrews 13. It says in verse 15, it says, therefore by him let us continually offer the sacrifice of praise to God, that is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. Do not forget to do good and to share, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased. Let's listen carefully to this again. The sacrifice of praise to God. We're going to offer the sacrifice of praise to God. Next verse 16. Do not forget to do good and to share, for with such sacrifices, plural, God is well pleased. So what we have there is we have a list of 3 things that God considers to be a sacrifice. The first one would be the thanksgiving and praise. It's the fruit of our lips, it calls, for us to give honor to his name. But the other 2 are man-focused, to do good. That's good works. That's oftentimes it has to do with giving to someone who can never pay you back. It's having the stranger sleep on the living room floor and eat breakfast with us. It's the good works. It's the stopping for the person outside the grocery store that needs food. It may be a sick neighbor and you bring a meal over. Whatever it might be. The point is the children, involve the children in these activities, because it's a huge part of our life. So we have the fruit of our lips, the praise, we have doing good, and then we have the word share. The word share is actually the word koinonia, which is the word for fellowship. So he's saying, here's 3 sacrifices: praise, good works, and fellowship. Fellowship. So what does that mean then? It means that for my family to fully benefit from this rich subject called fellowship, the exchange of life, one believer to another, it has to cost me. It cannot come only when it's convenient. I just don't feel like it this week. That's when it's going to cost. That's when we make the decision because of the value. And we work hard to hold to these values, not as laws, but we hold to them as values because they testify, once again, what we're willing to pay a price for. Now here's 3 sacrifices. One is directed towards God, thanksgiving and praise. The other 2 are directed towards people. I just was thinking about this morning. That same set of 3 things is what is seen in our ministry. Every believer is a minister. Number 1 to God, number 2 to the church, number 3 to the world. 2 are focused on people, 1 is focused on God. And it's never that our ministry to people is more important than God. But what it's supposed to be is that my ministry to God, which is of greatest priority, actually has an effect on how I minister to people, how I love people, how I value people. It's supposed to enhance my relationships with people so that I pay a price. We become different in that presence, in that glory. And it helps us to be willing to pay a price to sow into another person's life. I remember hearing on a talk show once, I forget if it was a psychologist or psychiatrist, it was one of the 2, one of the brain people. They were talking about, in their estimation, they considered 90% of all mental illness to be related to the attempt to avoid pain. Isn't that crazy? The attempt to avoid pain. We don't want to cause pain for our kids. We don't want to cause pain for our household or marriage or any of that stuff. Obviously, that's a no-brainer. But life itself offers enough opportunity to be disappointed, to have to walk through these struggles, the rejection of a friend, the betrayal, all the stuff that happens just in life. being open with our children enables us to help them walk through pain for themselves. They've got to be exposed to. And I thought we'd be able to pay this bill and we weren't. And now we're in pressure. Age appropriate, but we expose our kids to these things because it actually equips them with tools. See, a lot of kids grow up, they don't have tools. They don't have tools for communication. They don't have tools for resolving conflict. They don't have tools for addressing problems or goals or reaching dreams. And they just don't have the tools because oftentimes as parents, we are putting Band-Aids on problems instead of building for the future. So that's really the heart behind this entire curriculum, is to be intentional in what we think, what we want, what we value, what we're trying to build in this human life that has been entrusted to us for a season. And it's that intentional parenting privilege that we have. One of the things that we would do to our kids is we would not only expose them to, we'd expose them to the stranger, we'd expose them to the value of fellowship, as I mentioned in that Hebrews 13 passage, in that we would have people over to our home constantly. We were in other people's homes. So, and they love that. Kids are social, especially if there's kids their age. They would love to go to somebody else's house and run out in the forest. Of course, we lived up in Weaverville, and they would play their games and do all this stuff. That was a highlight for them. They're very social creatures, And so it was a huge part of our life was our commitment to people. But they also, we included them. Let's just say this is a home group setting. We're in our home, and we'd be sitting in a circle. And there would be times where the children would be involved. And I would point to an individual, and I'd ask the entire group, I'd say, what do you think God is saying to this person? And oftentimes my kids were the first ones to speak. They would just start to call out the gold in them. They would speak. In one case, I remember one of my boys. There was a friend of theirs named Daniel that was in this small group. Daniel Miller, in fact, is a part of our church, real estate agent here in town. I remember one of my boys looked at him and said, Daniel, and he began to prophesy according to Daniel in the Bible. He began to call out this gold in him. It was completely accurate. Daniel lives in that experience, that maturity. He lives in that today, what was declared at that time. So the point is, you want to expose them to opportunity so that God can speak to and through them. So you put them in community. And the kids are great because they'll be racing around on the floor with cars or throwing the ball or whatever, and they stop in the middle and prophesy and then go back to play and race them. There's no separation in their thinking from speaking of the word of the Lord and their play activity, which we maybe should learn how to do a little bit better. But they model that part of life. So you expose people to community, but in exposing your children to community, we expose them to a lifestyle of sowing into other people and in receiving. I believe it has to be intentional. One of the other things that we did, there's a wonderful ministry down in Mexico, Rancho de sus Niños. We support them, have supported them forever. They're the parents of the guys who run the ministry now. That whole family moved from Weaverville to Mexico to start that ministry so many years ago. And it's a powerful ministry. It's an orphanage, but it's also a church. It's also a Bible school. They plant churches. I mean, there's a relief organization. It's like, you name it, they just do it. And I love it so much. So what we would do is we would take our kids down to Mexico every year, not just expose them to our own community of needs, but expose them to global need. Because you don't want children, as much as possible, you want to keep children from thinking it's all about us. Because what you don't want to do is have everything you do. Let's just take money, our financial giving. I don't want to give just to ministries that benefit me and my friends. I've got to give to things that there's no return for except in heaven. I've got to sow into things that there's no gratification. I don't get to see, the effect of my gift that children not wearing clothes or whatever. It's a gift that is done because I believe in what God is doing and saying in through that ministry. So we would take our kids down there, and they would be involved in the. We'd go down to the dump, and there would be people that would be eating out of the dump. They'd go through trash, try to find something they could sell. We'd go through trash to try to find food items. And we would take our kids, and we would have this big truck full of blankets and food items and all this stuff. We'd just go in there and we'd just start handing that to the people that lived in the dump. Painful, but important. It shapes you, shapes your values. It's so vital that Eric, the guys who run this, Jimmy Horner and Gina, our kids grew up with them, and they now run the ministry. It's one of Eric's closest friends. Eric went down right after high school and spent like 6 months or so there, just working at the ministry. It was just such a huge part of life. So here's the deal: exposed to world need, exposed to poverty, exposed to things you can't fix. I mean, it's nice to be able to give $10 to buy the meal, but there's a bigger problem. Exposed to things you can't fix, because that helps to automatically nurture and develop a prayer life. All of a sudden, you find people, us, children, praying that God would enable them to do something. If you keep getting exposed to certain kinds of diseases, hopefully you pray, God, I want to see that healed. I want to see it healed through my prayer, my hand. And so we position ourselves to see that kind of breakthrough. Well, it's the same thing economically. We position ourselves to be able to serve these horribly broken situations. One of a highlight moment for us as a family was we had a young couple that, oh goodness, I forget how pregnant she was. She was great with child. And they were coming through town. They weren't married, but they were passing through town. I think they actually stopped at where Chris worked at a repair place, Chris Valentine. And it ended up, they gave their lives to Christ. And we ended up performing their wedding in my living room. Chris and Kathy were part of it. We performed the wedding, and it was, to this day, it may still be the most anointed wedding I've ever been in. I mean, God just showed up in such an extraordinary way to people that would have zero background at all in the things of the Lord, but they said yes to Jesus. And I remember, they lived in a camper, a pickup camper, for a while, and that just wasn't appropriate. So Benny and I brought them into our home and had them live with us for a season until they could get certain things fixed in their own, their income, things of that nature, where they could establish their own household. Stuff like that speaks. None of it did we ever do to impress our kids. It's just how we do life. But what you want to do is you want to become as intentional as possible to expose children to need. Why? Because by nature, God has designed them to be compassionate. Let's be honest, you don't have to be a believer to be compassionate for somebody in need. It's just how God wired us. But especially a believer should not only be moved with compassion, moved into sacrifice, but can also bring that supernatural element into the person's life to heal them, to restore them. And it was just a wonderfully beautiful part of our life growing up as a family, because we just determined early on just to let our kids see what life was, see what was important to us. There's an African proverb that I like so much. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Isn't that great? I love that. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Part of what you will communicate throughout your life to your children and your grandchildren really is how you value people. they will learn, how do you value the person who disagrees with you? How do you value the person who is completely different than you? We all have, we're all part of certain cultures, and there are other cultures around the world that are very different than ours. How do you react to different cultures? How do you react to somebody who has offended you or hurt you that is now back in your life? How do you treat these people? How do you converse? What is your conversation like around your dinner table or on a trip together in the car? What are the things that you talk about? How do you value and treat people? These are the things that train values, deeply embed values for people in our heart. And I guess the whole emphasis of this particular session is you can be intentional. We get to be intentional. We get to be intentional in saying, you know what, I want my kids to be exposed to this. So when I give sandwiches to the people down at the park that need food, I'm going to make sure to bring my child with me. It's thoughts like that. It just says, we're going to give today this particular ministry. Johnny, I want you to see that what Chris just talked about with this fire victim, we're going to do the best we can do to help people this dangerous wildfire that hit our city. And the whole point is you're including them in the process. Because if you include them in the process, you will actually help them to develop emotionally to need and to be able to respond out of health. All right, let's pray for this one. Father, once again, we look to you. Look to you for the wisdom, the grace that is needed to know how to respond in a healthy way to needs around us, how to include our children, our grandchildren, so that they discover the compassion that they were born to move in, the compassion they were born to demonstrate. We ask this once again, that you be exalted in how we raise our children. Give us that intentionality in how we raise them. Thanks in Jesus' name.
Okay, how are we feeling about this one, guys? Any of you guys have something that really jumped out at you? Okay. So, one thing, I circled it. Exposure to age-appropriate pain will equip your children with tools for communication, resolving conflict, addressing problems, and reaching dreams. I love that. We are, as parents, I think so often, well, I'll use me and my husband for an example. So when Thomas and I converse, we have two completely different personalities. Thomas is the personality of, I want to fix it, and I want to fix it right now. And if he can't fix it right now, it makes him irrationally angry. I, on the other hand, I want to hear everything and I want to talk about it, typical, probably, you'll probably experience some of the same things in your household. But Thomas is a fixer. He wants to fix it. And he wants to do the same thing for our kids. When our kids are having a problem, he just wants to fix it. And it makes him upset when he can't fix it for his kids. Am I talking about you too much?
What? No, I'm trying to look up.
Okay. I don't want to fix it for our kids. Most of the time. Most of the time I don't. Some of the times I wish I could. But most of the time I don't. I don't want to fix it. I want them to fix it. Because I don't have time to fix problems for 6 kids. I love them. I want the best for them. But I don't want to fix every little thing. And so one of the things that we work on with our kids a lot is, and I guess that in their world it is pain. One of the ways that I help Tom wrap his head around things for little kids is that they feel everything with everything they have. But so to them, whenever they skin their knee, maybe that skinned knee is the first time they've ever skinned a knee. And so it's like the worst pain imaginable to them because they don't have life to compare it to. Y'all are giggling. They don't have life skills to compare it to. They've never maybe broken an arm, so they don't have further pain to compare it to. So that's one thing that helped Tom understand why our kids cry at every little thing. They don't have any life experience to compare it to. But the life or the age-appropriate pain is important because if we just fixed everything for them, they would never, that's how we get kids that grow into adults that don't ever do anything because they just expect it to get fixed for them. So when our kids come to me and they say, well, Droopy did this, or Carson did this, or XYZ happened, and I say, so what are you gonna do about it? What's your plan? And they look at me and they go, I'm like, it sounds like a personal problem because it's not my problem. And I say that to my kids a lot. That sounds like a personal problem. That's not a mom problem. And that's probably really mean to say to my kids. But it is. Like, they're never going to learn how to conflict resolve if they can't talk to each other first. So whenever Madison comes into the kitchen where I'm trying to cook dinner and says, Mom, Carson is interrupting mine and Drew's game for the 100th time. And I turn around and I say, so what are you going to do about it? How are you going to fix it? I don't know. Well, brainstorm here with me, Maddie. What are some ways that we're going to get Carson out of your room? And to her, this is age-appropriate pain. She's annoyed. She is inconvenienced. She's in discomfort because her brother is annoying the heck out of her because he loves to do it. And so she's in, for her, this could be perceived as pain. She is, especially for Maddie, because Maddie likes order and Maddie likes to have things in a specific order and things like we're pretty sure there's some OCD tendencies in there for Maddie. But this really frustrates her. And so we go through it, we're brainstorming. How are you going to get him out of your room? Did you ask him to leave? No. So she goes back to her room. Carson, and I can hear it all in the back. Carson, get out of my room. Now! So then she comes back. I tried that. It didn't work. What are you going to do next? How are you going to fix this? And so we'll go through it. And one time she was like, Mom, can I just drag him out of my room? I was like, who's stopping you? And so she does. She takes Carson and she grabs his arm and she drags him out of his room and she says, this is my space. Because we respect our kids' space. Whenever the kids need a space to calm down or whatever, when we have to send them to the rooms because they're like emotionally losing it, and we're like, okay, go calm down. I can't talk to you right now. Go get your calm, and then come back and have a rational conversation. That's their space. We protect their space. So the girls have their room, the boys have their room, Rye has her space, Sophie has her space. So we respect those spaces. So if you're telling your brother you can't come in my space, that is the same. This is also how we teach our children about consent. You do not have consent to enter their space. You do not have consent to enter into their personal boundaries. No. The answer is no, and no means no. So she pulls her brother out of her room, and she says, stay out of my room. No! And in he goes again. So she comes back, she's like, that didn't work either. And I was like, well, what are you going to do next? And I didn't give her the answer. And like, you've got to come up with the answer here, sis. Because I'm not fixing this for you. I'm tired of this. Think it through. So she thinks it through. And the next thing she does is she shuts the door. She pulls him out. She shuts the door. And when he goes to bang on the door to get back in, that's when I intervene. Because at that point, he's being a pill. But she has done everything that she knows how to do to solve that problem. But if I just went in there to start and said, Carson, get out of the girls' room, I didn't do anything to teach her anything to be able to solve the problem on her own. So then the next time this happened, we had about 2 less moms coming into the kitchen. I heard it start immediately. It was, Carson, get out of my room. Carson, you're bothering me. Carson, I need you to leave. And she began the process herself. Did she still come in and Mom, Carson's bugging me? Yes, she did. But each subsequent time, there's less and less coming in and needing Mom to intervene. And now she can pretty much handle it on her own. Most of the time, unless Carson's just being really difficult that day. But she learned that set of skills by being in a place of discomfort and I don't like this, and this is bothering me, and I want Mom to fix it. So by fixing everything for our children, we're just not going to set them up for life. Now down the road, when Madison is in her first job and she has a boy or a person or whoever bugging the crap out of her at work, she can then turn and be like, "You're bothering me. Please stop." And she has skills. She has communication sets now to be able to start the process of, I can take this step, then I can take this step. How can I do this? And I can think my way through this problem. It's the same thing for our teenager. She recently had an issue where she had a boy that liked her, and she had another boy that liked her. It's a whole thing, y'all. There was a whole drawn out thing in my living room at 9 o'clock at night. And the biggest problem was, she looked at me and she said, I said, "So the boy doesn't want to date you, but he doesn't want the other boy to date you either?" And she was like, "Yeah, what do I do?" And I was like, "What do you mean, what do you do? Date the other boy?" And she said, "But I'm gonna hurt the other person's feelings." And I said, "And? Who cares?" And she said, "Well, they might." She's like in this like anxiety spiral in our living room, just crying her eyes out. And I was like, "Mariah, stop. What is the worst thing that is gonna happen if you tell that other boy to quit bugging you?" And she was like, "Well, he might talk about me." I said, "And?" And she says, "And then people might come up to me and like talk to me about it." And I was like, "And? What is so bad about that?" She goes, "Well, I don't know what to tell them." I said, "Tell them it's none of their business. Tell them you don't have to provide an answer for every person that has an inquiry into your life, child. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to have your own autonomy. You are not, like, all your friends do not own you. You can say, this happened, and that's it. You don't have to go into a big long story." And so she was like blown away by like, "I can do that." And I was like, "Girl, you can tell that boy to step to it, because it's not worth it. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy. It's not worth the heartache for a boy that obviously doesn't care about you." That was just teenager nonsense. But in this anxiety spiral, this is a tool she's been having, this is a skill set that she is working on right now, is because for her skill sets that she's having to learn are not as physical as my preschoolers, because they're just annoying each other. Mariah gets in her brain and she can't dig herself out of the spiral. She just spirals to the bottom and then stays there. So for Mariah, she's having to learn to think through, if XYZ happens, what is the worst possible situation? And how do I combat that? What am I going to do if someone does the worst imaginable thing in my brain? And she has to learn how to rationalize those things, which is really hard for her. It's really hard for a teenager. But she has, I couldn't go, what she wanted me to do is call the school. What she wants me to do is fix it for her, is to give her the answers. And I'm like, I can't tell you which boy to like, I'm not you. So I have to be an ear for her. One of the tools that we learned at CAFO that I have used a lot is, I hope that works out for you, because I have to take my hands off the situation. I can't control everything. I need to let her be uncomfortable to let her learn life. And that's really hard for me as a mom, especially whenever she's making decisions that like come back on me a little bit. So that's really hard. It's really hard. Yes, ma'am.
How do you teach them independence while also teaching them it's okay to ask for help?
That's hard. So one of the...
Can I add one more thing?
Yes.
Just because, like, for me, growing up, I was taught independence,
Mm-hmm.
because I had to see my mom do it as a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm so independent that I have a hard time asking for help when I'm overwhelmed with life.
Yes. That's hard. So one of the things that I saw recently that I have loved and would like to start implementing with my family, because I'm the same way. I was raised hyper independent. I was the oldest of 6. I was the one that was left in charge of the younger siblings whenever parents went off to go to work, and that's just life. That's just how it happened. And I grew up hyper independent of being able to care for myself. I worked 30 hours a week when I was in high school just because I wanted to. I wanted to be my own person. And I still struggle with that as well, being able to ask for help. That's whenever my husband has to come in and be like, you need help. And I have to say, like, no, I don't. And he says, I'm going to beat you over the head with a bat and like get it through your head. You need help. So he's really good about, calling me. He's good about calling me on it. But a tool I saw recently that I think is a great tool that a pre-K educator uses with their children, but someone else has been adapting this to middle schoolers and high schoolers, is teaching a catastrophe level scale. So is it an emergency? Is it something that just needs a like, I'll have to find the resource and give it to you and give it to all you parents. But basically it creates this system level of like, this is not a catastrophe. Like catastrophe is I need help and I need help right now. It's an emergency, a broken bone, throwing up, all the things. But like down maybe on like the level 1, and I can't remember what he calls level 1. There's like 3 or 4, maybe 5 levels, and each level is like a different level of I can handle this on my own. Maybe I need a friend's help with this. Maybe now I need to involve the teacher and ask for help. But like each level, and it teaches these kids to like categorize things by like breaking it down for them. So like in the instance of a teenager, if they were to come to me and with this problem, we could start breaking it down for them and to be able to put these problems in categories of, is this something I genuinely need help with, or is this something I could resolve on my own? And to be able to break those down and give them examples of each level. So whatever you want to name your levels, like, is this a catastrophe? Is this, gosh, I wish I could remember the other words he uses. But is this a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, a level 4? Let's just say it like that. And if you're like, okay, level 1, you can resolve this on your own, is something as simple as, my clothes are dirty. I know how to run the washing machine. I can wash my own clothes. This is a level 1. I don't need to rely on my mom to wash my clothes for me because I can do it. Maybe like a level 3 would be like, I have a mountain of homework to get done. I have no time to do my laundry. Now I need to lean on someone for a little bit of help because I can't manage my time and I need help to manage my time. But breaking the things down and giving them examples into each level of, I can do this on my own, to, oh no, I'm in deep water and I need help right now. So that is a tool that I'm going to find the resource, I'm going to send it to you, and anybody else that would like that resource, I will send to you as well. But adapt it to your family. Because right now the resource I have, it's for little peoples. But they are, I've seen these little peoples teach it to their big siblings. So, okay, Thomas is telling me I have to stop. So, leave you guys with this. This is a community. And thank God we have one. Thank God we have people to lean on for support. And I encourage you in this holiday season, because I know the holidays can be a rough season. If you are needing community support, Thomas and I are here for you to start with. I know Rainey and Sherry are here for y'all. But if you need support, find your person, or come find me and I'll be your person. I'm happy to be your person. And we are here to support you guys. We're here for your emotional needs, physical needs, whatever it is. We've got a resource for you, or we've got a shoulder to cry on. We've got hands to help, and we want to be here as a community, and we want you to bring your kids too. One of the things that Thomas and I have done for numerous people in our church before, and people think we're joking because we already have 6. We will watch your kids for you just about any time. We have had people call us saying, I've had a babysitter fall through. Is there any way you can watch our kids? And we say, bring them on. Because what's a couple more at our house at this point? It's just a blast at our house. We collect, you might not get them back. We collect kids, y'all. So lean on us because we're here for it. And in return, when we're in need, we're gonna lean on y'all. Yeah. Because we've done it before and we're gonna have to do it again at some point in our life. And I want you to bring your kids along with you because they learn right here, it starts here. Right here. I learned growing up, watching this church support my mom and dad, I learned that this is where I can go to when I need it. And I've come back time and time and again. So I'm gonna leave you with that.